welcome to Adobe Live. We are here with Pek Pongpaet. I am your friendly neighborhood Ash Huang, designer here at Adobe. We got a full schedule today. Welcome. Let's break the ice. Who's in the chat? Hi, where are you all from? Welcome back if you were here yesterday. Yeah, we had a lot. We covered a lot yesterday, didn't we? We talked a lot about starting a business, being freelance, starting a company, starting Impekable. This is super exciting.
Yeah, just some background info, and then we got started on the case study a little bit. A little bit of hiccups, but
yeah, designing a case study on this Windows machine, that was a big thing.
Yep.
Yeah, so a little bit of housekeeping. Schedule for today is the usual. We will have a chat and win. We will have daily challenge. So this week, we will have hand lettering again with Kim. And then tomorrow, XD, creative challenge again. And then UX design.
And CEO, thank you so much for staying past midnight here. We really appreciate your time. Very cognizant. We have a pretty remote distributed team as well. So if folks, in India, and we're constantly, shuffling between me taking late calls and them taking late calls. So we're very appreciative.
Yeah, always love how international the crowd is here on Adobe Live. Nigeria, Scotland. Whew, that's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
So hello. All right. Let's see. Other scheduled things. So chat and win around 30 minutes. Then we will be reviewing that daily challenge, and that will be from Discord. So get those in there, and we'll take a peek at those about an hour and a half. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to get started with?
Sure. Just to recap, we're working on a case study for one of the portfolio pieces from one of the projects we've done before. In terms of your career and the business, it's very important to not only do a great job on the work, but also work on presenting it and making sure that you showcase your work so people can find you, people can see the work you've done, and you talk about it. Otherwise, if the people don't know about it, you can't get customers.
Yeah, and then summaries from yesterday, clear problem statement, always think of the user, make it very easy to skim your portfolio. Case studies.
Great. Yeah. Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, and this morning I had some time to just futz around while Kim was working, and I just kind of cleaned it up a little bit. So I didn't get a little bit. I made a little bit of progress because I felt like I was not making enough progress yesterday. So we have to recap. The content is totally separated from the design via our Google Sheets plugin. Some here. I did notice that one of the bugs I found on the Google Sheets plugin is if you have a layer that's locked, well, you can't get to it. So you kind of have to unlock your layer because we can't write to that layer. So I was like locking layers because I was accidentally moving them because I'm still getting used to this laptop. And I was like, oh, okay, my stuff doesn't work anymore, but problem solved. So that's like a caveat there.
Yeah, and again, this is available to everybody, not some secret thing. You just go to XD plugins and get a new plugin, and then there it is.
Yep. To recap, you find it here. This is go to Discover Plugins and just type Google, and there it is.
There it is.
Awesome. Awesome possum.
Cool. So walk us through some of the changes you've made. So
so no big changes. I was basically putting the meat of the filling it in, right? So needed the actual screenshot on each section. So the content, the text content was loaded. Technically speaking, I could have also put in a placeholder for the image as part of the asset. And what I could have done is I could have added another column and it would have been an image. Unfortunately, you can't just upload, put an image in Google Sheets and have it. That would be pretty awesome. It does work with URLs. So like if you have like, a cloud URL, like for us, we use Box. We used to use Dropbox as long as it's a public URL. Creative Cloud, any publicly accessible URL that you store your images in, you can dynamically load that. So I could have taken that step but I didn't know what I wanted yet in terms of the content. So I was just like dragging it around. Do I want this? No, I don't. And so like that was just easier to drag and drop rather than putting in the URL in the sheets and then reloading. That would have taken me more time. Yeah. Right. And then also the other time I spent was like futzing around with the image that, kind of like here. These images.
Ah, yes, the floor.
Yeah, the floor, like,
I
didn't think, I was flipping it around and, like that handle was obstructing and then I would have like had to like erase that. I was like, that's too much work. I ain't got time for this. And plus I didn't want to take your time because, I think we have to cover more important stuff. So like this minutia of kind of futzing around with the design, I don't think is a great use of your time, to be honest. So I want to give you like the meat and make this session really productive.
Yeah, and again, if you have questions about the business of design, Pek is the perfect person to ask. So get those in the chat, and we will answer them as we can.
Take full advantage while I'm here to ask those questions, and then post that. I'm always available on Twitter to answer any questions you guys have, and I answer those questions also on Quora under my name. So feel free to tag me there if you have questions. However you want. I'm pretty omni-channel. Yes.
I feel like that is the whole thing of itself of like where you have to be presence-wise online now for portfolios, not just like your site, right?
We're gonna plug. We're also on. We're on Behance, of course. And these are more long form. So we're on pretty a lot of the platforms. So we're on Dribbble as well. Dribbble is really, it's very different. You have to understand the medium. Dribbble is for like these one-off shots. We typically make them GIFs or animations because that seems to be what does well over there. And then for Behance, these are more long-form content. Mm-hmm. So for example, like to go back on the Google Sheets example, here's the about section, the problem, the solution. Actually even show the sitemap and some of the screens, onboarding, main screens. We did quite a lot of work. Error states, initial, and invalid stuff. We actually also did a website. We had to promote the product. We did some videos. So quite a lot of stuff. And then we also designed the kiosk. So we were at Adobe Max last year, and there was a booth promoting the Google Sheets plugin. So all the work related to that,
Yeah, I think of note, all the error states and everything you did, I think this is like all these corner cases sometimes get lost, especially when you're first starting out in design. You don't remember to catch all of these.
Yeah, and we didn't even catch them all. I mean, as people have found stuff to break, there's more error states to be designed.
Yeah.
So that's just, this is part of the showing your work that we, like I could go deeper, for example, in the central use case of like, we thought of, it can go as long or as short as you want, but like, in other parts of the world, there's more ways to pay than one. Sometimes people is like, cash and collect, like they pay, the product comes, then they pay cash. That's an option. Pay and then pick up in store, for example, at the nearest store that they are at. That's an option. There's like a lot of options to pay. And then there's multiple ways, there's like in Asia, there's, things like not just Apple Pay or Samsung Pay, there's like Alipay. And so there's like Line Pay. So all those things, we had to design for. So we could probably go very deep, like the case study could be much bigger as well.
Yeah, and so that is interesting. I do remember a question yesterday of like brevity versus breadth, and like showing these examples if you're hiring, especially someone who's younger. It is really impressive though to see these though, right? To be like, oh, this person can consider, all of these use cases and design like a comprehensive system.
Yeah. So in terms of, I think designing a portfolio for hiring would be showing stuff like this, where the depth of the thought. I think showing a portfolio for an executive to hire an agency, they might want to understand, like in terms of kind of scannability, right? Like, how many pages is this? How long did you guys take? How much is this going to cost? Just give us a sense.
Yep.
And then also results achieved. And then some stuff like that could be much harder to get from a customer, right? Like they might not be willing to share with you that it improved X amount because competitors could then just also hire us, So that's a challenge. One challenge that we suffer all the time being an agency is getting the results achieved. Sometimes customers do tell us. So, like for example, we did a client a job for a global retail brand, and they did give us a testimonial that this result at times achieved 400% ROI. So that's like a great metric. Like if I can put money and make 4 times that money, like
well, you paid for yourself.
Yeah, I do it all day long. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think the question, what's one thing that you most struggled with as a designer, and how did you overcome it? It's a great question.
As a designer, I think in the early days, I struggled a lot with just injecting too much of my own opinion. I think designers are by nature very creative people. You feel like you have to design stuff. Like in design or in software, there's very, very completely new ideas. There's best practices, there's standards, there's design patterns, there's things people are used to, there's things like conventions. I was doing design critique one time, and there was for like these at a design boot camp, and for example, like one designer who was both new and trying to be creative had put the back button in the bottom right for whatever reason. I said, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Can you tell me why you did that? Like, why is the back button on the bottom right? I've never seen that. And he couldn't give me a good answer. He just didn't think about it. I think it was like, oh crap, I gotta put a back button. Where do I put it? Where does it fit?
Yeah.
But if you look at, if I go open any app, just open a lot of apps, right? Like open 10 apps, and you'll start to see patterns. For example, like the back button, I'll tell you, right, is usually on the top left. So like if you decide to put it in the exact opposite, you have to have a good reason why, instead of just because I didn't know better, right? Because that's what people are used to. So I think one of the struggles of a new designer is there's already established patterns. You don't have to reinvent everything. You don't have to be different for the sake of everything being different, for sake of creativity or your self-expression. It's about making it easy to use.
Yeah, and it is nice because there are all these established patterns, and you can look them up. You can use UI kits. I know you've done some UI kits.
We've done some
UI
UI
plug
kits.
those again.
This is a great site.
Oh yeah.
Patterns.
This is a great resource.
Patterns. So design patterns for everything.
Yep.
So like if, everything under the sun has been, we're just making twists of everything. Like you come up with a new app, it's a twist of an existing idea. I can guarantee it to you. We've done 600 projects, and I can tell you like very few of them, or none of them are like, completely new ideas. They're a twist off something. So like, if you want an activity feed, for example, narrow it down. These are different patterns for activity feeds.
But there are a lot of similarities. You got the cards on top feature. You have the like cards in a feed.
Yeah, you start seeing patterns like, hey, these are cards. Wow, this is a little different, but the stat is, very brief, so maybe that you need a smaller card. Yeah, and then they want you to upgrade. It used to be free. We actually pay for this for our designers.
That's fair. This is a lot of work cataloging.
Yeah, no, it totally is, and it's totally worth it.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, you know what? One of the things too, in terms of advice for a designer is there's, when I was a designer, in the early 2000s, so there's no, late 90s, there's no resources like this. You went to Barnes and Nobles, which doesn't even exist anymore. You bought a design book this thick, and you kind of like flip through stuff. Nowadays, you just go online, it's like, ooh, there's a payment gate, pay for this. It's totally worth it. But there's so many resources online that you can learn from that you don't have to start from scratch.
Well, what's funny is it is someone else asked here, Saru asked, is it okay to grab a design in Behance, code it HTML, and then, practice? And to your point, when I was first learning to code, there was none of that. So you would just inspect element, look at a page, and then be like, oh, okay, like I understand now how this is built. I will say if you do that now, you can practice and then maybe keep it to yourself or even like credit it. But yeah, definitely as long as you're not presenting it as like your own IP.
Yeah, if you think about any other discipline, whether it's music, like I come from a martial arts background, martial arts, you practice stuff, right? Like you drill stuff. How I got started as a designer is I would just look at things, back then I would look at sites like Facebook, Pinterest, design patterns, like during the skeuomorphism era, I look at Apple applications like iBooks, if we want to take it back, and then just mimic them. And by doing them enough, like I learned to internalize the design patterns, and that's how you get good. When you learn music, you don't start by composing your own music. You learn by playing other people's music until you get good enough to understand music composition, how they organize stuff. Same thing with martial arts. You don't start with composing your own, making up your own forms. You learned routines, set routines, until you internalize that and you understand how moves flow together. And then eventually, after years of mastery, then you can start composing your own.
Yeah, actually a super interesting exercise when I was starting out with product design was I would take apps and then literally write down all the things I like about it and like why. I'd be like, oh, this animation's really nice and it's consistent across the pages. And if you do that for enough apps, and you can even do this with some friends who are also learning design and share, you have a compendium of like, oh, these are like things that I think are good design. So, yeah.
So Young asks, I'm planning to make a UI kit and sell it. Any tips?
Oh, right person to
This
ask.
This is a business question in some sense because, it's you guys are designers, you can make UI kits. The problem is you have limited time, limited resources. What UI kit should you be making is the question. Is worthy of your time and can return. I would venture to say, like any effort or any category of things, there's an 80-20 rule, meaning like 20% of all the things make up 80% of all the revenue. It's actually probably even more extreme where 1% makes up 90% of the revenue. So I would do a lot of research and see what gets a lot of traffic, what gets a lot of buys. If you go to sites like UI8 or like ThemeForest or Creative Market, take a look and understand and research and see what gets a lot of ratings, what gets a lot of sales, and then, or go to like sites like Dribbble and see what UI kits are very popular, and then kind of work backwards from there.
Yeah, give us the skinny. How people are always talking about passive income, where it's like, oh, I'll just make something, drop it, and then like it'll give me money. How passive is passive income?
I've come to learn that there's really no such thing as passive income, because it always requires some effort. You make an asset. The asset sits there unless you market it, promote it. There's no passive marketing. Unless, well, there is. I mean, you buy, you can set up automated Facebook ads, but the same ad, things don't just work the same way over time because there's like ad fatigue, like there's competitors who will outbid you. So even that is not fully automated. So, you build an asset and you have to market it, you have to promote it. So there's, even if you have that asset, you have to do, it's not completely, like autopilot, passive.
Yeah, and you do have to update too if you're relying on, say, like XD updates and something breaks. Right?
Yeah, things like, for example, we have an Apple Watch. We actually did one of the first Apple Watch UI kits. I'll shout out to Tihan Lax, where back in the day.
Oh yeah.
They were always on top of the iPhone UI kits, right? iPhone and so here's us. And I would begrudgingly use them, right? Like I was like, I love this.
So much time.
Saves so much time, and I loved it. And they did such a great job. But why am I using some other agency stuff? That would just kill me. And so when Apple Watch came out, it was announced. I said to the team, look, I'm not gonna take this anymore. We're gonna be the first, to do like some Apple resource so that other people can use. So before they even showcase, like when they announced and they had this video, I had one of our designers kind of painstakingly go through the video, and then like they would freeze frame and recreate all the shots that when they walk through the Apple Watch announcement. They didn't put out any resources yet, but our team just watched the video, freezed it, and like recreated this Apple Watch GUI PSD painstakingly, this came out in I don't know, it was like over 4 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And we were the first. So like if you Googled Apple Watch GUI PSD UI kit, we were the #1 Google search result.
Yeah. Because nobody wants to make a status bar for the 90th time. It's just so much easier. Yeah.
But getting back to the point, right? This is super old, right? Like the Apple Watch UI OS, now that it's on OS 4 or 5. So we had to update that. So we recently update that, and we put that on Behance.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of having to refresh, right? Again, it's not passive income, right? Like stuff gets old, you have to refresh it. So yeah, that's to me that's my thought on passive income. It's not true. There's no such thing as passive.
Kind of passive, but not really.
Kind of,
a lot of work.
Yeah, kind of passive, but not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like having that client on retainer. You're updating stuff as time goes on.
Yeah. I mean, if you're selling UI kits, you can also say, hey, here's the new version. You update it and you charge, if somebody bought an old version, maybe it's like a cheap upgrade. But if somebody buys the new version, it's, and have never bought it before, then it's a full price. So that's like stuff you could do.
Yeah, that's great.
So you can still capture. That's what I would do, yeah.
Yeah. And then you all did the dashboard UI kit.
Yeah, so we work a lot with enterprise SaaS companies. So we build dashboard products for companies like Aruba Networks and various other companies. And so we have built a great kind of internal expertise in building and designing and thinking about dashboards. So when Adobe needed, like this sort of like gold standard dashboard UI kit, they came and talked to us.
Yeah, so that's great because that was client work you were already doing, so you're familiar with all the patterns and
yeah.
So it's like a much lower lift where you could just kind of like
for sure. And actually, dashboard UI kits are if you want ideas, dashboard UI kits are one of the most popular UI kits. And I think designing for business is good because business always makes money. How many movie apps or music apps do you really need, or do people really have on their phone? Not many, but in business, there's no shortage of business applications.
And there's a lot of interesting problems there where it's like managing a lot of data.
Yep. It's harder, but I think there's better money.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, do you want to poke around at your case study?
Yeah, let's do it.
What's left?
Actually, I'd love to get some feedback. I had this as the central red, and it pops. Or I could have it as white. Whoops, am I doing it at the section level? Yes, I am. This is what Control Z does.
One more.
Say what?
Full screens.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
So I'd love to get your thoughts on it's funny. I'm looking at the color, and it's totally different from what's being projected and what's the deep red here.
That's also a major tip, huh? I did meet a guy in an interview who brought his own Mac display. I don't know if I'd recommend this, but he brought it to the interview so that the colors would be true.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that is a designer's
that's
designer.
really funny because like what I'm looking at is not the same as what I'm looking on my screen in terms of color. But yeah, just throw it out there. You know, I'd love to get your thoughts.
Well,
Should this? Are you thinking, you know, the red background or a white background?
Well, let's walk through this.
Yes.
What is the purpose of this top section?
It's to capture your attention so you can scroll, you know, consume more.
Okay. Yeah. So I think based on that purpose, because I can see a white background working better if you want to highlight the text more. This is more if you're going to highlight that image because you get that contrast. And so if this is to catch attention, maybe towards the red. Let's see what you all think. But then if you wanted people to focus on the summary and the words and to learn about, you know, that, maybe the white.
The white.
Yeah. So there's pros and cons to every decision.
Yes, yes. And actually, because Central, like, we're not talking Macy's, right? We're not talking, you know, for a US-centric audience, you know, if you might not recognize what Central is. So I might want to focus on the words because if you're not from the region, you might think, oh, is this what, a Shopify site, you know? Mm-hmm. But Central is, you know, one of Thailand's biggest retailers. This is a big deal. So I might want to highlight that. So in that case, but I want my cake and to eat it too. I also want to call out this. So maybe I should use a black Mac or something later, or like, I don't know.
Oh, so a different frame to pop that off.
I don't know, to pop that off.
It's a possibility. Have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I want to have both. I'm greedy.
The plight of a designer.
I'm greedy. Yeah, so I think white is good. The Central logo stands out because, you know, I don't want to change their logo. They like to use the logo, you know, in red against white, so I don't want to necessarily mess with that.
That is very clean.
Yeah.
We have a couple votes for red, by the way. So the eye-catchingness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really good feedback. All right. Well, I listen to people. Like, you know what? I don't. My thing is, I listen to users, right? Like it is. And if people say, you know what, this is gonna catch my eye better, and I'm more likely to even investigate this, it makes sense, right? I don't have the vector version with me. I downloaded this from central.com.
We'll have to use our imagination because I'm
We
sure
don't
they
have the
a
blend
white on
modes
red.
yet, right? And do the white.
Sadly,
Feature
that is something
request.
everyone is looking for.
Feature request. So we'll leave this as this. I'll get the vector and fill that out later. I don't want to waste your time.
Yes.
Cool. Problem statement. Let me make this so that I can make it bigger. And yeah, I really wanted to just actually sometimes it's good to, for example, maybe show a lot of times showing the previous version is a good idea.
Yeah, the before and after.
The before and after, right? So, like...
That's always quite compelling.
You know? I don't know, a quick Google.
Yeah,
This
what
is
did
not
this look like before?
Central. Yeah.
Oh, everything's so tiny and squeezed.
It's, you know, yeah, but yeah, you know, sometimes showing the older version. And maybe what I would do too is, yeah, either side by side or maybe a little stacked and can cover I would cover, like show the newer version on top.
To make it clear which one is which.
Yeah.
Well. Good question, Damien. What is the chat and win? Chat and win, when we return, we're going to play a short video. We'll have a minute in the chat. Just say hi, quick flurry, and then the prize is 100, I think, Sticker Mule stickers. So your design, you can print them for free. So very exciting, awesome prize. You can see we're a fan of stickers. So we'll be right back after this video for chat and win.
Good morning.
Chat and win.
Chat and win. And good morning, New
going.
Zealand. It's very early there.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Time. Yeah, what would you put on 100 free stickers? Would you make more Impekable?
Yeah. That's a good question for 100 free stickers. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe an animal of some kind. What's your favorite animal?
We don't have a mascot, or we don't have a thing. Like, I don't know what a cool mascot for Impekable would be.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Penguin?
I was just thinking
why.
penguin.
Really?
Yeah. You know why?
Maybe
Because you
spending
think
too much time
of...
together.
There's a few mental leaps, right? Like a penguin, sometimes, it looks like it's wearing a tuxedo. And when people think of the word impeccable, it's like
and
impeccably
like peck,
dressed.
like a bird.
And peck like a bird, yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
You got it.
An impeccably dressed penguin.
Yeah. Okay, the winner, Daniel, congratulations. Someone will be in touch with you very shortly with how to get your stickers. For everyone else, the party is not over. We do have an offer from Sticker Mule, so you can get 10 stickers for $1. Single dollar, 10 stickers. Wow. So, great deal. Also good if you want to try out a design and see how it goes. Yeah. So be looking for those penguin designs later.
Thanks, Damien. Yeah, I like your upvote there.
Awesome.
Cool.
Wow.
All right. Yes, so we were talking about the problem statement. I always want to show kind of like the current state, right? Mm-hmm. I'm having a little trouble finding old images of Central. Maybe I do like Central.
Oh yeah, somebody did recommend the Wayback Machine, which was,
yeah, Internet Archive, right?
Yeah. They've just loved your design so much they scrubbed it all off the internet. Magic SEO genies.
Oh, it's here. See, everything is on the internet. Everything is already there. You don't have to
forever.
There forever.
Oh man, I think my first portfolio when I was like 15 and using Photoshop to paint like Pegasuses and stuff is still on the internet and on one of the Wayback Machines.
Wow.
So.
Why is this not working?
Oh no, is this only?
It doesn't do that's weird. I mean, it.
Search archive websites? Maybe it's that radio button. Let's see.
All right, there we
you
go.
go.
Nice. Good catch.
Let's see. Oh, this is so nice. You can
So our stuff.
Oh, you can see
so
when all the stuff was getting updated, huh?
Yeah. But let's just go back to November. That's pretty old. So our stuff came live, 2000? I actually don't know. Like I said, this looks like ours, so
I was gonna say, I was like, that actually looks pretty nice.
It's pretty new. Like I said, we were very behind. That's the thing, is like we're so behind on our case studies. It's we're so busy doing our work that we don't have, and this is a constant problem for companies or freelancers. It's like you're so busy doing the work, you don't have the time to do the work to promote your work.
Yeah. That's why you do see a lot of people or agencies who have very outdated, and they just seem to be getting tons
Our stuff
of work,
was so outdated. Okay, here's an old design.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. This is kind of how it looked.
This is very different.
Very different, but it's also kind of broken from the Internet Archive, so it doesn't show it fairly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But this is kind of how it looked.
Okay.
It had a fixed width. That was one of the problems, is they had a fixed width menu. They had an always there category menu. If you look, and it was just taking up space, the way it was presented, it was taking up space. Again, not very mobile friendly, as you can see. The cards kind of just mostly stayed the same. We didn't, change that all that much, but I think the architecture is, we now scale the site to as big as your screen, so that if you have more real estate, you see more. If you have less real estate, you see less, instead of like forcing you to see, this much. And as you can see, it was like very busy, very, very busy. We simplified it a lot.
It's funny because we were talking about patterns earlier, and I feel like this left rail pattern was a very popular pattern back then, but there was a shift change where it's like everything went to menus and you wanted everything to be responsive and as big as possible. So
yeah. So trends do change.
Yeah.
And you have to understand what the trend is and what are some of the new best practices they are as well. So, like this, like you said, in fact, I recall Amazon back had this exact, they probably looked at Amazon and said, works for Amazon, will work for us.
Yeah.
So, right. But I think, doing a good job of like, maybe, if I could get a screenshot of that, I would probably find a good screenshot of that, put that, maybe kind of showing it at maybe half, so that, half of it, and then laying on top the new design, kind of on top like that, just so that you get an idea.
Yeah, and that's a great summary too, to say like, if you don't even get very far down the page, it's like, okay, well, this is where, it's like in the movies where you get the narrator who's like, this is the current state, and then you go into their whole backstory.
Yep.
So very old narrative trick.
Yep, exactly. And then the solution. And as you can see, the menu now is just on top, and it's not always, it's uses the area much better. And then, mobile web was a very important consideration, because in Thailand, I think in many countries, they totally skip the desktop experience. Like, people don't have powerful machines or computers, and their kind of window to the internet is mobile. So addressing kind of the lack of mobile, the mobile responsiveness was a challenge, or important.
And did that inform your decision to do that top bar? So they're kind of mirrors, so that if you did go on desktop, it did feel like it was the same site?
I think we looked at some of the best practices on e-commerce, in last year, kind of the latest in terms of multiple e-commerce sites and where it was going. And I think we just saw the top nav was really a very common pattern.
Yeah. And then there are advantages to do mobile first, though, to answer Sir's question, which is...
Yeah. For clients where mobile is important, you might even want to start with mobile first.
Yeah, and it is a good constraint because you have so much less screen space.
Yeah.
So you can't fit everything. So sometimes it's a good forcing function to be simple.
It is.
Yeah.
Actually, for a beginning designer, I think it's good practice to start with mobile, because it forces you to focus on just the most important things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, the result. So we were, the summary is we were able to do the upgrade within the time allotted. I'm not sure. Yeah, this was something that I was working on next, was like, I want the images to pop, but I don't want to do another red because we just had red. So like, okay, what do I do? And actually, maybe we can use a central black. They're black. Whoops. I always do this. What if we use that? Oh, because I locked it. Just turn up that opacity. Yeah, that's already better contrast, huh?
Boom.
There you go.
Simple. I just like to keep things simple. People, you're really trying to showcase your work, the content. And the other stuff should kind of almost disappear. So you don't want to add so much flourish, you know, like I don't want to add so much so that you get distracted. Like you don't even see the woman because I don't want you to be distracted by the woman. All those things are like, it's about the content and the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then so with picking these colors, can you talk a little bit about working within like a brand guideline? So Central obviously has a very strong brand and they have like their logo and their colors and everything. So how was that?
Yeah, so they had new, and actually there was an evolution of their logo and brand as well.
At the same time?
Right. Well, kind of gradually.
I see.
Central department store logo. You know, growing up, Central looked probably more like this, and the red was different, as you can see.
Oh, okay.
And over time, the Central mark now looks more like this, and it's all caps. You know, it's not a script font anymore, and it's a deeper red, and
And then did they kind of drop you a big like packet of all the stuff to use, or is it still?
You know, not every company has like a big brand guideline. We have worked with companies that have like they have the mood of images and the color spectrum you need to stick to. So some companies, some brands you work with will have that. So you want to be cognizant of that and ask for that up front. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there other things that you ask for from a company up front when you're getting to know a client?
Oh yeah. You know, who do you consider your competitors? Who do you look up to in terms of brand or design or the look and feel? So we get a pulse of what, you know, the analogy is like we might not even be the best fit for you because we have a certain style, or, you know, there's certain things. Like if you have a more fun site where it's cutesy and it's, you know, a lot of animations and cutesy characters, we might not be that agency for you. And if that's what you want, so you want a match, so you want to understand what they're looking for. You know, it's almost like music, right? Like if you play classical and they want jazz, maybe that's not a good fit.
That's a really good point.
Maybe you can do jazz, but you need to understand that that's what they want. Mm-hmm. You know.
Yeah. How do you figure out too with the client of like what they're looking for?
Yeah, so there's a lot of work as part of discovery or workshops or questionnaires. You can do it as, you know, in different formats, but kind of get a sense of what they like, right? You know, if you're doing, for example, a great example is, so Lyft and Uber essentially provide the same service. But if you look at the design of Lyft and you look at the design of Uber, they're like polar opposite. Lyft is a little more fun, more colorful. Uber's more, you know, kind of like
very serious,
like hard lines, you know, thin font, black, grays,
like old school German engineering type design.
Yeah, so it's very polar opposite for essentially the same service. So you have to, you know, ask and tease that out of the customers. Is it like, what do you want, you know?
Yeah.
And you also don't want to be the same as your competitor, because otherwise it's, you know, you have this brand confusion.
Yeah, so you do a lot of competitor research then.
Right, like you want to, right? If you're working on that, you want to be in a different color spectrum as a competitor even, right? So that, you know, if you're in the same product category and you have the same colors, you know, and you guys both use like script type instead of, you know, like, then you're not really branding yourself uniquely.
And part of the branding is explaining what makes your brand unique from everyone else. So it's nice when the design is just like, it's very obvious. It's like, oh, Lyft is different from Uber for these reasons, so I know what to expect if I use Lyft versus Uber.
Right, and in the beginning, I mean, I don't know how you probably remember the funny mustaches, and you know, you were encouraged to sit in front, and you fist bumped your Lyft driver. I mean, that was like all part of the culture or brand. Like, you know, this is not just a driver. This is, you know, a person that is doing this for, you know.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, there are some questions about changing languages in XD. Do you want to take a little break and then look at some?
Yes, let's do it. While she takes over, I'll do a little bit of minutia work to not take up the time, and that will be a good use of everyone.
Yeah, and so we don't have to watch you move your pixel back and forth.
Yeah, it's not a good. It's not a like nobody wants to watch paint dry. Trust me.
Yeah.
So like yeah.
Yeah. So I picked out a couple of other plugins besides the Google Sheets, ones that I thought were kind of interesting. The designing for other countries question comes up here. There's a plugin called World Ready. So you'll see here we have just a blurb of text about San Francisco, very generic. So what's cool about this is I can go to plugins, I can go to World Ready, and then, artboard, my bad. Plugins, World Ready. And so I can say, like, how is this going to look in German? Which is usually I feel most designers will say in German because German is much more, it's a lot more letters versus maybe Japanese will be like a quarter of this. So, yeah, this is what's great about the plugins is there's a lot of these like usability, accessibility, internationalization plugins. So I can highlight and you can see there's a big red outline. Why? Let's compare. So we have the German text here. It was overlaid, but you can see that in German, definitely longer, although not as long as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like twice as long. Yeah, but you can do that and then see like, oh, in German, this is a very rough translation I'm imagining, but like, oh, like this text almost fits German, which is pretty impressive. But
we find it more in applications. So like when you have fields, right? Labels and fields and buttons.
So if you had a menu.
Yeah, like if you have let's say a mobile application and you have these buttons, right? And you have them a certain size.
Yeah.
Like buttons like home or login or password or stuff like that. Things can get really long in different languages.
So if we just did this and said, what's probably a long word in German? Manage account. Let's try that. We could do a couple of these. Like change password. So it's like even barely fits in English. So let's see what happens. And then let's select settings, just to see. We'll use center-ish. Now, if we do this plugin again, I'm gonna look in German. Oh, maybe this is fine. Or maybe it didn't pull that. Well, I'm curious what that would be. It seems to have just pulled this main guy. But yeah, cool plugin. All right, another accessibility plugin that's really cool is Stark. So this is great. I don't know if any of you are colorblind. I think about 30% of the population has red-green colorblindness, I think I heard, which is a lot, but we don't really think about contrast. And so you can already see, even if you're not colorblind, like this starts to get a little weird, but what you can do with Stark, which is really nice, is you can actually check contrast or do colorblind simulation, which is really cool. This is something that was in Photoshop that I would use a lot way back in the day, but there's different kinds of colorblind, and you can start to simulate what this looks like if you have that color blindness. You can see like, wow, this really blends in if you're colorblind. So this is a pretty cool plugin as well. And I actually haven't seen the check contrast yet, so let's see what that does. Non-artboard layer. Okay. I guess it's like, we'll check the contrast of this. Let's see if this works. Okay, you can only check against colors. That's good to know, but we'll just make this black. Or whatever color this is, that might not be black. Or here, this is better. We'll make this against this guy maybe, which already looks kind of interesting. And then you can check contrast. So yeah, they actually give you a contrast here, and then they give you what's readable, and this obviously fails the contrast check, which you can see with our eyes, I think, but it's a good backup tool too to make sure that you're not making something super eye terrifying. Okay, let's see, what else do I have pulled out? Oh, this is a really simple little plugin. This is by Peter Flynn, actually, who's on the XD team as an engineer. So, very familiar if you're an Illustrator fan. So you can do blend colors. We can say, let's say 3 stops, and it just automatically creates these for you, which is kind of nice.
Sarah, that's the World Ready plugin?
World Ready.
Yeah, World Ready.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see, we can do it even more. And so you can start to create these like interesting graphics, like
That's
that's
cool.
just a click of a button, which is pretty cool. This is also useful. I can see this being really useful if you're trying to come up with a color system. And so you have 2 colors and you're like, I don't really know what to do for the other like 4 colors for some highlight colors. You could just do this and then you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, so that's pretty useful. And then these 2 are useful for, whenever you have something, so you have your Imagineer conference, you have all your speakers, but don't know who they are yet. Really handy to just be able to, highlight all of these, highlight that, and then put in UI faces. This one I really like. You can say where their source is from, so we're gonna hit Unsplash, Diverse UI. You can even do an age range, some gender, their expression, and then maybe randomize it, and then just quickly populates it with faces, which is like a pretty nice, easy one. So that one's really handy. And this last one is really interesting. So say we have, again, a bunch of blank images. We want to have an inspiration feed, but we don't have that info yet, but we just want to show this before we have all the final stuff. So another plugin, if you go into Design Hunt, this was working before. Maybe it's because it's different objects. Well, it should populate with items. It's funny, this was working like 10 minutes ago, so I hope this didn't break somehow. But yeah, a little less impressive. But yes, definitely agree with Damien. Super interesting. There's like a lot of really great plugins, so if you go to plugins and you can go to Discover, you can make your own, which is really exciting. But yeah, there's like pattern makers, calendars, a bunch of like user ones. So of course search again, but tons of different interesting plugins here. So yeah. Any of you have favorite plugins that you've been using? Let me know in the chat. We can peep at those. So yeah, how's your mock-up going?
It's good. I'm just working on a new section.
I see a new section. That looks cool.
Yeah. So we initially had this typography section and just justified, the use of Gotham, blah, blah, blah. But really, for a decision maker, like maybe that's not the most interesting piece of fact in the world. But what I thought was probably more interesting, both for potential customers and other folks, is just the breadth of work that it took. So like we had some stats, like the number of screens we did, number of mobile web screens, the number of components, the number of hours we put into this project. That can inform the cost, and the effort, right? Like, they thought this was going to be like, I thought this was going to take a month or something. It's like, no, probably not. A little more for this huge redesign.
Yeah, so it's great to do all this audit work also before you get started in a project.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's intense.
So.
Oh yeah, this is great. And it also breaks up the grid a little bit, which is nice. So your eye gets kind of like a resting place.
Hours.
2,500 hours, wow.
Well, I mean, if you look at this, think of that. Do 500. add the 500 and divide it by hours. It's really not.
That's true.
Not that
That's pretty
much.
impressive, and that's all thanks to components, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do the work up front of identifying components, and then create those components, and then you're now just assembling Lego pieces.
Yeah. Do you have any special tools that you use in like this process, or is it pretty analog?
Yeah, it's pretty analog. It's going into the site. I mean, you have things like web scrapers to kind of scrape the whole site, but that's not useful either because you don't. it'll scrape all the products, right? Like you really just want to identify, like for the scope of this project, okay, what type of pages are there? There's brand pages, there's product pages, product detail pages, there's product category pages, there's the checkout flow family of pages, there's a registration login family of pages, there's kind of like different, there's the cart set of pages.
Yeah, there's tons.
So that you identify those pages, and then when page groups or page categories, then within those you drill down into the components.
Oh, we have a question of UI design versus graphic design.
Well, my background is software engineering, software application development. So, and we would work in small teams. So small teams meaning lack of resources. So I was always the one kind of tasked with chopping up the Photoshop file back in the day.
Slices.
And slices. and speaking of UI, speaking of user experience, right? Like the experience I had was the designer would just hand me this massive Photoshop file. So if you were a front-end developer back then, you had to know Photoshop, for better or for worse, because you had to navigate, that darn Photoshop file. And sometimes people don't always, with Photoshop, you can have you can save the state of like turning the states, pages, the elements on and off.
Layer
But
comps.
sometimes the comps, but sometimes people don't do that, and you're left with doing it yourself. So I had to basically learn Photoshop as an engineer to be able to get at the components. And then I realized, that whatever they're doing is more, I found, well, what I found was I felt like I could have a better, more impact to the user, to the software, designing how it works, than just coding it up as a, to me, like the task of coding that up was personally less fulfilling and less valuable. And I found more joy and enjoyment out of coming up with the way it worked and deriving joy from the users feeling delight and enjoyment and you being able to use the software.
And that is a testament too of like following your passion, right? Where it's a question of, I mean, you obviously do have like practical considerations of like where are their jobs, what's useful for people.
Yeah.
But, you should be following like what you prefer.
Yeah.
So if you are really excited about graphic design, then like
Yeah.
you should probably
I mean,
do that.
software, if you looked at the market, software engineering does make more money than software design.
Yeah.
So if it was purely motivated by money, I would just do whatever, just maximize, the pay. But I think I really enjoyed software
Yeah,
design.
you've started a company, so like lots of good things have come out of it.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
assume you're happier,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, there's pros and cons.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone. We can go into that later if people are interested. No, it's very fulfilling. Having my own agency and working with a great team of designers and developers is amazing. And what we've accomplished is nothing short of amazing. Like if you had asked me when I began that one day we would be a top company agency in the Bay Area, I was just like, there's no way. There's just it's too big. There's just too many companies. It's very competitive. Like that's not even a realistic goal. But nowadays it's like, okay, that was real, and we've gotten some of our clients are like now national or global retail brands, and just like, oh, we've gotten one of those. Can we get other global retail brands now? Now I'm getting greedy. Well, now it feels more realistic. Before
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, this is impossible, or like it wasn't even a consideration. And then also things like, and as our company has leveled up, the recruiting has also been better. Like when I started, like I would have never thought that a designer from Apple would ever want to work. Like, why would they want to work at this dinky little agency? Like that doesn't even make sense, right? But it turns out, there's quite a lot of fulfillment. There's, if you're a designer at Apple, you're one of 1,000 plus designers at Apple. You're like a small cog. Like you're a designer at Apple, you come to Impekable, and we're like, holy cow, this is amazing. You know, we worship
Take
you.
this whole project.
Yeah. So, you know, they have a lot more ownership. They feel a lot more appreciated. And we've been able to attract talent like that. So it's, you know, and they get a lot more ownership. They feel like they're, yeah. So, and that's leveled us up, right? Like, for example, so there's, yeah.
Yeah, what strikes me really about your story too, and I think this is a theme. I mean, I've felt it in my career. I don't know if you felt it in yours, where it really is like one thing or like a couple of years, things can change wildly. Like you can be a total newbie, and then like 3 years later, it's like, wow, I've like progressed so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that really is like a nice thing to remember, especially if you are starting out, where it just feels like, oh, I'm never gonna be a designer. Like, I know so many self-taught designers. I think I know, like at this point, it's like almost more self-taught designers than designers. I went to school for design, but like, I feel like there's no advantage, you know, once you get far enough out.
And nowadays, I mean, you guys have this show to learn from that's ongoing, and there's so many really great people on this show. Not speaking about myself, but you know, like all the people in attendance that I've been, you know, looking at, and then there's so much content on the internet nowadays. Like all of that had to be learned via a person or in books.
A lot of gatekeeping.
Yeah, a lot of gatekeeping, and the information was not as accessible. So then you guys have you like people progress way much faster. Like there's you know, walkthrough tutorials on YouTube, like step by step, where people are just designing websites. You can just go to YouTube and Google that, and you know, like that wasn't available for me. Right, I had to like open a book and follow that, you know, step by step, you know.
And then if something went wrong, you're like, well,
who do I?
That's it. Shut the book. It's over. Yeah. Now it's like you could ask someone. You're like, hey,
now you can ask someone, and people are much more accessible. People are on social media, right? Like you can connect with a designer and just ask. Yeah.
Brave new world.
Brave. Yeah.
All
right.
So you have like one section left for now.
So so we have the stats, and it's a nice break from you know, see like all this color, you know, red, dark, white.
It is nice having the rest.
Yeah, so you're getting this nice clean
numbers.
stats. I might write something, you know, something quick, something about the project.
Are you gonna do this in your Google sheet?
You know, I should. Thank you for reminding me. Yes.
That's what I'm here for.
Right. So why work with us should be the stats. And we could say, oh man, I'm gonna come up with like, it takes me great, you know, I'll come up with something on the fly that we'll edit.
The plug.
And like the project involved two designers and a design project manager, and took, I don't know, it was like about 8 months.
That's stamina.
To complete.
I think it's
good. And I even had a typo here.
Yeah.
But this gives people a frame of reference, right? What else would you want to know in terms of?
So that's how long it took to complete. What other stats do you have?
I mean, those were the highlights, right?
I think that's good for now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now let's show that plugin in action. I think, right?
Let's do it. I bet you some will fail. Oh yeah, we have some locked layers that kind of.
Dun dun dun.
But
I think that was the one, right? Okay.
But let's zoom in here.
Yeah, then we can see that real effect. That'll be
effect,
exciting.
Yeah. So like, because I'm the guy designing, this is a contrived example because I'm also the guy working on the content and the guy designing. But like, if somebody was the marketer in this department and they were in charge of the content, they don't have to ever know how to use XD
And they don't have to bother you either.
And they don't have to bother people, right? Yeah. To make and oftentimes content will get changed. Content will be like drafted, and somebody needs to approve that. Legal needs to approve. If you're talking about a big organization, marketing will write something. Legal will have to approve it. The CEO will take a look at it and like, I don't like this. Rework it, and I'll go back to marketing, and I'll go back to legal, and then every time, imagine a designer being bugged about this. This is not what they want to do in terms of like, this is not a good use of their time.
It's very distracting. And also there's a chance you'll miss one. So it is much cleaner, like let the computer do the computer work.
Yeah.
Which is great.
So we have, since it's already hooked up, I'm just gonna do refresh content and boom. Right there.
Nice, so easy.
Yeah. And everything else, like if I updated the spreadsheet, it would overwrite all that and keep it clean. And the nice thing about this is, right, like I as a designer can work on just tweaking the positioning, but I don't have to worry about the content.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, we are getting some questions about coding and designing, which is always an interesting question.
All right, what did I...
So how many times have you designed something that you couldn't achieve with code?
That's a great question. This is why our team, the designers and the developers, work very closely together, because it has to be achievable. It has to be, and we find this, part of the reason why Impekable started as a pure design agency. And what we found was that oftentimes, the engineers of the client they didn't pay attention to detail, so the pixels were slightly off. Maybe the design was taken as a serving suggestion rather than a prescription. Like, oh, okay, I'll take this piece from here, piece from here, and I'll cobble something up. Or, or just they weren't capable. And so, you have this beautiful design, prototype, spec'd out, and then the actual output was just not great.
Oh, that's the most heartbreaking. Yeah.
And the client's looking at us and like, okay, well, this is what I'm getting. I don't care what you guys did, but this is what I'm getting. It's not what I want. So we realized that for us to be a successful organization, like, think of, the analogy is like, why you buy a hammer? You don't buy a hammer because you want a hammer. You buy a hammer because you want to hang something. So like hang this piece of art. So maybe the better service is to just do that for them. So for us, we realized if we didn't provide pixel perfect code, with the animations, with the transitions, with the mobile responsive web stuff, a lot of organizations just weren't going to be successful with our design. So we started offering that. But we run into this, right, in the beginning when design didn't talk to engineering. Design would do something, and then engineering would be like, no, this is not possible, or like, this is not, hey, this is not possible in Bootstrap or Foundation, or, or within even the time constraint. So the other issue that you want to be cognizant, a lot of times, it's just as a business, you have these, right, like people want this, but then they have timeline and budget.
Yeah.
So what can they afford within that timeline and budget? And a lot of times, for example, stuff that gets cut off is like those superfluous animations. For example, like, oh, I don't have budget for this, I don't have budget for that. So things get cut. So then on this, you have to be cognizant of what is going to get cut in engineering. So that otherwise you're designing a bunch of stuff that's just never going to see the light of day, and it's just a waste of money because the client's not going to see the coded version of it.
Yeah, and you could have spent more time making an animation that is possible, or I don't know if you've heard this saying, I think it's an engineering saying where it's like anything is possible, but like it's how much time it takes. Like nothing's impossible, but one solution might take like 60 days to make, and then the other one takes like 2 days.
Yeah, you have to be cognizant of what, and my perspective as a previous engineer helps that, because I always had to code up whatever I designed, so I was always designing stuff that I knew I could code it very efficiently.
And
So-
again, goes back to that thing of solving the problem.
Right.
You just have to start to weigh like, oh, does that fancy animation solve this problem? Like some examples it actually might, like where
Yeah.
you do need that delight. That's part of the like problem, but in
Right.
many cases it's like, okay, a stock animation will do.
Exactly.
If we have time, we'll make it really.
Yeah, and there are stock animations. There's stock. This helps you guys be better designers if you. There are sites like we look for like just like you guys look at sites like Dribble and Behance for inspiration. There's sites like Codepen, which are like really cool code snippets.
It's like code dribble.
It's like code dribble. It's basically code dribble. That I'm not finding. Let's see, popular. Maybe like let's look at popular. Maybe design patterns, but like circular mass transition. I don't know. I'm just looking at this.
Oh yeah, and it gives you a little preview.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like, okay, well, this is possible, and like if you want to achieve this in XD, what would be good is if you also saw this in Codepen, right? Like the developer might not be aware of this, and like, oh, that seems really hard. You find this, and like you basically help them do their job, right? And like, hey, this is a way to do it. You can use this snippet of code to achieve the effect that I'm trying to achieve.
Yeah, it's actually as a designer going through this and looking at stuff can give you a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
Which is it's good, and then you know that someone has made it possible and that there at least is a blueprint for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Some
okay,
interesting stuff.
now I'm like sucked into this. Okay, this looks really cool. I don't know,
Wait, what
whoa,
is-
look at this.
what?
This effect here. Whoa.
Ooh, grayscale. Wow.
Oh, okay. Anyways, I'm
That's
distracted.
really
Yeah.
intense.
Codepen, another great resource.
It's awesome. Oh, and then how often are you working with like CSS frameworks? That's a great question. Or like Bootstrap, Foundation, also like.
Yeah, we use frameworks a lot. So at our shop, we are a React shop, React.js, React Native, Node. We don't want to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
There are tools, I think there's, in the same sense that designers take pride in coming up with an original concept, engineers taking pride of coding something from scratch, but that also doesn't make sense. If there's a framework or a tool that already does 80%, clients always want it faster and cheaper. If they, like you go to, the analogy is like, a car, like I drive a Civic, right? Like, okay, a car is 16 grand. Do you want to wait, however long it takes to assemble a car, or do you want to snap your fingers and get a car?
And it's mostly what you need. It's like maybe
Right.
the cup holder is not in quite where you would put it, but it's
Right. But
been
if I
designed
could have a
for-
car right now, I'd rather have the car right now instead of, however long it takes to make a car. So if there's a tool, a framework that already does the job, a client will most likely want
definitely
to have
worth
it,
checking out.
the solution right now rather than later.
And there are a lot of hard problems like content management and like especially for the future, like setting up the client so when you leave, they can keep going and the
Yeah.
framework's maintained and
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, oftentimes you don't want to be, if you hand code something, that's great, but then if the client wants to change the content, now you've signed yourself up for a nightmare. So you want to use a content management system that works for them, and to plug, Adobe has a great one called Adobe Experience Manager.
you can come back. This is
I
great.
know how to do this.
You've been here before. Awesome. Okay.
Awesome. So we just updated the stats, right? And it's a nice, clean, white thing. We have work with us.
This is
so
a good
we
little plug at the bottom.
This is a plug at the bottom. Call to action, right? Like
There you go.
You've this is kind of like a story, right? Like what is this? A brief overview. What was the problem? What was the solution? This was part of the solution, right? Mobile web was a concern. Here's the result, and here's some stats you should know. And what's next? Well, we want you to work with us.
And that's a very nice, clean story. It's just like,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. And so,
What do you do a different one for every case study, or do you have like a one that you use?
Well, it evolves. So we are very iterative.
Okay.
You know, our tagline has changed a lot. So now that we've got the #1 spot, you know, with that accolade, we're definitely going to use that. We've gotten badges. So like, let's see.
Oh, are you going to do a nice logo pile?
Oh, for sure, for sure. So we got badges, so I'm gonna pimp those badges. Is it okay to say pimp here?
Jury's out. Yeah, how often do you go back and update old case studies? Like if you have
never.
in your copious free time.
Yeah, we barely don't. Like as you can see, the central stuff, our work has been on for a while, and we just haven't had a chance to do this case study. And I'm just using this this opportunity to do this very shamelessly.
And so in that case, it is really, I don't know if you at Impekable have a house style guide or like certain things that you do that makes it maybe a little less bad if you're not constantly updating, where it's like, oh, at least like
well, we're coming up with a
look the
template
same.
now, right? Like we are coming up with a format of like, hey, here's the overview, here's the problem, here's the solution, you know, some summary and call to action, work with us. So that's kind of like the format now.
Yeah, and at least then, even if they look slightly different, there is some unity, and you're like, oh, this is the same company. This is the story I can expect.
Yep.
Yeah. There we go.
This is a slightly different size.
Oh, that's fun.
So now I gotta futz around with
Oh,
that.
it's so bitty. Oh, there you go.
That looks about the same.
Yeah.
So, whoops. So I don't want to hand measure anything. Oh, it's because it's in a different layer.
You keep your layers very organized. I have props to you. Even in the Photoshop days, my layers would just be, I would have to, right before a delivery, go and like name all the layers and like do it all at once. It was like cleaning up your room. That's like a disaster. Before someone comes to visit.
So for us, we don't have a choice, right? So because it's client work, this is going to be handed off to someone.
Excuse me.
Right?
Yeah.
Bless you.
Thank you.
This is going to be handed off to someone. So if you want a client to look at layer 1, layer 2, ungroup, group, like that's a horrible customer experience, right? Like we think about the customer experience, right? And if we hand this to a client, hand this to a developer of a client, you know, the developer's like, oh, these guys suck. They're so unorganized. They don't. That's a bad experience.
That must be the worst feeling as a developer. You get some file that you're like unfamiliar with, and it's just like.
Yep. So we have to we you know, and also this is why we designed the Adobe XD Google Sheets plugin to work with the layer name, because it forces you to come up with good, meaningful names.
Good hygiene.
It's good hygiene. So we kind of like inject a little bit of our best practice into that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, team disorganized layers.
Yep.
Don't have to be perfect to be a designer. It's the lesson. Yeah, so just a reminder, there is just over 10 minutes before we look at some designs for design feedback for the daily challenge. So get those in. Working hard as we work.
Yeah.
Dark gray, huh?
Well, that's the actually that's like the central color. So we just kind of just use that. Mm-hmm. Actually, what's missing is like work with us. How do I work with you? That's horrible.
Make it easy. That's a good tip, right? Make it really easy for people to say yes to hire you.
So how do we do that? Well, you leave some contact info, right?
A giant red button.
Giant red button. You know, so we do, you know, contact. Well, I'll just do that as separate from content.
There you go. There we go. Now people know how to get in touch with you.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, and use the tools. I just use the alignment tools because I don't want to try to hand do something. I don't trust my
Always let the
my
computer
manual.
do it.
Yeah, just let the computer do it. Yeah, it's more precise. I'm not liking. It's not sticking out enough. So, oh, and also it's got to be Gotham. Some partial to Batman.
Are you?
No, I mean,
Well,
yeah,
I was
Batman
gonna
is
say
cool.
who's your Gotham? I mean, not Gotham. Marvel.
Marvel? I don't know.
Who's your Marvel? Or are you not a?
Well, I love Marvel.
Superhero.
Yeah, I don't know. Tony Stark is awesome. I feel like you like Spider-Man. It's just that you introduce yourself as your friendly neighborhood designer.
I forgot that that's where that's from.
I was like, oh, okay. Is she partial to...
Into the Spider-Verse was very good, though.
It was.
Yes.
Nice.
Oh yeah, we have auto-animate naming the layers. Yeah, that's a big one. It's magic when auto-animate just works, but definitely part of the troubleshooting if they're not the same name.
So if I have a text blob, can I highlight and just want...
What do you want to do to it? Do you want
I just want to bold this one.
to... You should be able to.
Should be able to. Wants me to do the whole...
Oh, is this like a weird selection thing maybe? You may want to... Oh, it's a bummer.
Yeah, it's...
You should be able to do that. We'll have a little note for the team because that would be desired behavior.
Right. Anywho,
Oh, we
yeah, I
have
mean,
a
that's
Tony
mostly...
Stark fan. There you go. Well, now, how would you prepare this for someone to build? Would you have like critiques? Like, what would be the next step if you finished this with your agency?
We would, in the words of Vanilla Ice, we collaborate and listen.
With your teammates.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we hit the share button here. And share for review.
Okay. Yeah, and this is a good opportunity to highlight the differences between the share for review, share for development, and all of that. But
Yeah. And just create a link.
there you go. Public link.
And whoops. Before I share my Slack, I want to make sure that that channel doesn't have any
Anything
inappropriate stuff that I can...
anything secret?
Yep. I would just, paste this in that to our team in Slack. So, for example, I'm going to go to the designers channel. Oh, jeez. Anyways, I would, I'm not going to share my Slack.
We want to see your custom emojis.
We have client stuff on there, and so
Totally
so
understandable.
we can't do that. But yeah, this is what you do, right? Like you have this, and you just paste it, and just get some feedback. Once I don't want to buy any Adobe stock images yet until
Until you get the okay.
And the okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't live in design day to day anymore, so I would kind of defer to some of my very seasoned designers about the background and stuff like that. They might have a better, different opinion, and even maybe just the color choices in terms of like how they're staggered, and yeah, so we collect feedback. That's just the part of the design process.
And when you're collecting feedback, do you have tips for new designers when they get critique of what to take and what not to take?
Well, first of all, one advice is it's not about you, and a critique is not a reflection on you at all. You can't take this personal. This is the work, and you have to separate the work. Says the guy whose name is in the company. Yeah, right. But you have to separate the work and the customer's opinion or people's opinion from you. You can't take it personally. It's about solving a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, so that's one. Yeah. What about you? What would?
Well, that's how you get better, right?
Yeah.
It's like by accepting slightly uncomfortable, maybe. Yeah, I would say any critique you get, sit with it for a minute and accept it, and then think about it. You don't have to respond right away. You can even say like, "Oh, that's really interesting," and write it down, and then, consider it on your own later, which is great.
Yeah, and I would say, if you ask 10 people, they'll have 10 opinions. But if you keep hearing the same thing over and over, maybe there's something there.
That's true. So getting a second opinion.
Case in point, right? Like we heard in the chat that red really catches people's eye. Okay, let's just go with red, right? So, yeah.
We are less than 5 minutes away from judging a challenge, which should be fun. There are a lot of entries today, but definitely get them in. Before we do that, though, did you want to show what this looks like if you export it for development? Share for development.
Let's do it. So we're just skipping. We're just assuming. Oh, did I accidentally move this down? I did, didn't I?
Oh, no.
This is why I lock layers, because I can't be trusted with not moving things.
Yeah, I have the Homer Simpson broom fingers, so I'm always there'll just be random rectangles and stuff.
And
the second eye is very important there. So your coworker would be like, "Did you mean to randomly make this busted?"
Yep. So share for development is the other option. Share your design specs. Boom. And what are some of the things that we should consider? What are some of the tips that you have when sharing with developers?
Definitely keeping an open dialogue, so don't just make it a throw it over the wall thing. I think that's the number one thing where there's also going to be acceptance that a developer's going to find the edge cases you didn't find. So oh, you didn't put hover states on this, or
hover states is a huge one. Actually, people don't think enough about hover states, error states, as well.
That's a whole rabbit hole, but very important. And the poor developers usually get sacked with that, and then they're like, I don't know.
Yeah, you don't want them to make it up.
So you want to be available. Yep. That's a big one.
Yep. To echo, don't throw it over the wall. The advice applies to both designers, developers, and clients.
Yes.
So you don't want to just throw it over the wall. In fact, I wouldn't even, to kind of echo that, I would set up a time with my team to go over this rather than, hey, here's a design, take a look at it, tell me what you think. There's no context. Some of the designers, only the designers who worked on the central project would really have a good grasp on this, right? So I think, again, don't, kind of set time, present your work, explain why you chose, why is this crazy red? Oh, it's well, it's the central red for the people who didn't know, right? Stuff like that. Why is there a shopping bag? Because it's, retail. So, you have to present your work and
definitely sift through the feedback. Yeah.
So same thing with developers. They're gonna have to, they're gonna have questions of hey, how do you want this to flow in mobile responsive, or how do you want this to handle when blah blah blah, or you might have opinions on things, and you might want to call out things hey, this needs to be a link so that when I click on the sales, people can email. Otherwise, they have to copy and paste or remember to type it. So you want to walk through your design and explain, whether it's for the customer or for the developer.
For sure. Okay, do we want to look at some of what was posted in design feedback? There are a lot today, so
Let's do it.
we have a
Yeah, let's
busy
do it.
task at hand. All right, thank you all for submitting to the challenge. Very excited to see what you all came up with. I think some of these are also latecomers from yesterday. All right, let's see what happens with this one. So, oh, did you see the animations on this one?
It's not animating. Where's? Ooh, okay, yeah.
So that's really interesting, where you also get stuff happening on the page. I actually haven't seen that very often.
That's cool. That's very subtle. I didn't
Yeah.
notice. I did not notice the lady doing
Yeah.
that. That's
Oh,
really
that's
neat.
gorgeous.
That's really cool.
Very nice. All right, now this one, we have video. Whoa. You all are really interesting with the animations here.
You guys are great.
That's hardcore.
Air quality, coming from Thailand, that's very important. We're having air quality issues in the north. This is neat. Touches on a subject I care about. Being in California, I don't know if you were affected.
Oh, yeah.
With all the fires recently.
Yeah, that was a lot. So, worldwide problem now, but super nice animation. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Click to launch interactive prototype. Okay, let's begin. Oh, there we go. Who are we working with? Okay, let's choose whiskey. That's what I would drink if I could drink. What kind of drink? Okay, flavor profile. What do you think? Let's see what's actually hooked up. I should actually, before we, go back. Okay, next. All right, I see. Okay.
So go for
Yeah.
it. Do you want fruity, spicy?
I don't think any of these.
Oh,
are
these don't go
hooked up.
back. Got it.
Just showing off it's just a little tease.
Got it.
Cool.
Cool.
Awesome. Interesting colors. I like the palette.
Yeah. Same feedback as yesterday in terms of making sure that the font size. And maybe I'm getting old. I'm like that old fart who's gonna complain about the font size. But I'm feeling that the label is a little tiny.
That is good feedback.
And it's very common when designers are designing in giant thunderbolts, and
Yes.
it looks fine here, but always preview it on your phone. And even our designers suffer from this, where the demographic, one app that we worked on, the demographic kind of skewed on the older demographic, and they're like, young man, this might be fine for you, but he couldn't read it.
Yeah, the best is when you're user testing and then they pull their glasses on and put the phone, and then you're like, oh gosh, all right.
Yeah.
Like that a little bit.
So I'm struggling to see it from there. I'm struggling to see it from your screen here. So make sure that you always preview it on your phone.
Okay. Oh, I already opened this one, so moving right along. Okay. Let's see. Upload. Here we go. Whoop. Very nice. Very nice auto animate. Very smooth. See that one more time. Select an image. Whoop.
Cool.
Yeah, and what's nice about these animations is they make the upload time seem like a lot less time. So that's why you always see those loaders in front of Twitter and all of that. It's very exciting. Okay. It's making me want some coffee. Let's see. Size. Small. Oh, let's do medium.
Ooh, I like the coffee cup.
Oh,
going
y'all are really
big.
nice with these
This is
animations.
amazing. Oh my god, that is so
A+.
delightful.
Yeah. That's so cute. Precious. Oh, we got some really good ones this time. Okay. SMT, Vegas Stars, Stardust, Gravity, and Vortex. So what happens here? Okay, we got some images. Awesome. Okay, so these are disclosures.
Like a gallery.
Got it. Oh, nice. Cool. I have utmost respect for cheerleaders. I have no physical coordination whatsoever. That's probably why I became a designer.
I sit at a computer all day long.
I know.
There's a reason.
Only these have to move correctly. Awesome. Okay. Let's see. A Bike to the Future. This might be a scroll down.
Bike to the future. I love it.
Ah, here we go.
Bike to the
video.
future.
Are you a big biker?
No, it's a reference to Back to the Future.
See, you're a pun guy. I
dated
missed
myself. You probably are too young to remember Back to the Future.
I hope not. I remember Back to the Future. Let's see that again. So, oh, nice animations. Wow.
Oh, neat.
That's really nice. That's
really
very
cool.
delightful. Yeah, so you
I
see
like
the trees
how
building
you
up.
explained. Yeah, just like visualized it. That's really cool.
This is a really creative way to show progression.
Yeah. Puns are awesome. Yes.
Puns forever.
Puns.
Okay, let me
Cause the
Great.
pandemonium.
Pandemonium. That's the secondary title for this. Okay. Let's do this. Drop image here. So let's say we dropped that. Very nice Tudor style house, I think. Not an architecture major. Confirm. Oh. That is a very juicy upload bar.
Gee, that's meaty.
Exit. Awesome.
One comment I had probably around that is maybe the contrast on the white on the blue is very hard to see.
Cyan. Yeah, and this is to your point yesterday where we have to be careful with the
people
different
with color blindness and making sure like you have to have and different displays. It looks very light on the display we're looking at, so it's very challenging for us to see the text. So just
even
keep
from
in
here
mind.
to here, it's different. So, yep. Awesome. Okay. We have this. Oh, I like these shapes. Oh my.
Whoa.
Dang.
Love it.
Okay.
That.
Let's see. So let's try login. Oh, okay. See,
Oh, look at that. That's
like
so
fully
much going
fleshed
on.
out this.
Yeah,
Fully
I know.
fleshed out this. Let's sign up. Whoop. Welcome.
That's a lot.
Yeah. It's a lot of work. That's awesome. Yeah, it's a lot of work to just hook up everything so that this is a literal.
Yeah, well done. There's a lot of animation here going on. I love it.
Wow. Yeah, this is like a very full, and this is kind of nice. It shows off that you can come to your client and say like, hey, we almost have your full app even though it's not coded. Having a nice prototype is such a good tool.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow, this is in depth. It's great. Okay. Let's keep moseying right along. All right. Oh, nice. Oh, okay. It is nice to create that sense of dimensionality.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
makes
very
the site
interesting.
feel very alive. Wow.
I like that one of the horses is in the foreground. Like they've. The horse. Yeah. That creates some perspective there.
That's some nice motion.
Very cool.
Okay, and then I have two more, I think. Let's see. Okay. You have this one. Nice and clean.
Yeah. I see a lot of upload. Was that one of the exercises?
That was the challenge today.
Got it. Very cool.
Yesterday I think was the drop down, and today's upload.
Got it.
See that one again. It is nice too for clients to show off this like wireframey version of the Finder, which is cool.
Yeah, that was good. That was really smart.
Just little tips and tricks. I think I had one more that I picked out. Oh, fitness app. Yes, very light, please. There we go. Oh, wow. That's delightful.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Wow. Thank you all for submitting. These are really amazing and a lot of work.
Yeah, a lot of work.
It's really exciting.
Very, very cool.
Yeah. Now is the time. Is there any we want to see again to evaluate before?
No, I think I got it.
Oh,
It's
which
a-
one?
it's tough one.
Yeah, it's really tough.
I think I see the amount of put in the sign up login animation. There was like that splash screen animation.
Was it this one?
Yeah.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
just
like
so
just-
much.
yeah.
Was it this one? Yeah. Yeah. There's
All
so
the
much.
work.
All that work. A lot of thought went into, animating the logo. Kind of how do you fade into the sign up screen, and even going in from sign up to login. You've created a lot of work for developers. It's amazing. I just think it's like, oh my God, this is not. Yeah, somebody's gonna have a lovely time animating all this stuff in code. But no, this is really good. It really helps add that. Like if this was I can see this, kind of being a very whimsical, fun experience that people would play with.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Congratulations. Someone will be in touch.
Yeah, I'm partial to the coffee stuff, but I
Oh, yeah,
really,
that one was
because
so
I drink a lot of coffee, way too much coffee. But I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
No, that was like maybe an honorable mention there. But I thought this was well done.
Cool. That is the daily challenge. Tomorrow we'll have portfolio review. We'll be picking a couple portfolios, I think 2 portfolios, which is very on theme for
cool.
today,
And
so
I gave all that advice, so hopefully you guys took some of that.
Awesome. Well, should we get back to
Sure. Let's do it.
the business?
I saw a bunch of illustrations, so just for some folks who maybe are in the audience who don't know, there's a site for kind of these, it's very trendy these days to have illustrations versus maybe back at some point there was like very trendy to have like full bleed, really nice photography, kind of edge to edge, but that like nowadays, like if you look at Slack or Dropbox or, some of these companies, you see a lot of illustrations. It's very trendy.
Yeah.
So, one resource that you guys should be aware of is, the site Undraw, where it's open source, it's free to use. As a designer starting out, that's always appreciated.
And there's the Noun project too, if you need vector.
Yeah, and the for icons.
Yeah, for icons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another site that we use a lot of as well. So.
Do your clients often also give you budget for hiring a photographer or illustrator? Out of curiosity.
Almost never. I think we talked about this like only one time in the history of our company that somebody had budget for a photo shoot. It's a big company. Most of the times, clients, maybe sometimes their marketing department might already have done shoots and they give us those. Other times, they're totally okay with stock photography.
Yeah. That is the way. If you really want that's like what's the nicest car? I don't know, the Porsche of
and if you have that and you offer that as a service on top of your agency, that's great. For us, in the history of our whole company, we've only had to deal with a photo shoot only once. It just doesn't come up very often. So it's there's another site that does, it's like Unsplash as well, is a kind of royalty free stock photography as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think this goes without saying, using safe photos, safe images is always better, just in case mock-up accidentally makes into real life or something and you're stealing someone's work and no one wants that.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta make sure you have your rights to that photography. And these are also like sites like the Noun project, for example. If you guys do iconography, you can also post it up and sell them on here, on Adobe, on Adobe Stock or anywhere. Basically, there's ways to make that.
Yeah, and that's also
passive,
great.
Not so passive income in my mind.
Passive income, which are already skewered. Yeah, and then of course, great practice, right? If you're a younger designer or you're just starting off and you don't have clients necessarily, it's a good way to kind of show off what you can do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
it's also a good way to be found. Like I would say that that's not like listing your stuff here is not the end goal of making money, but it's so that you get found. Yeah.
So what would be next now that we've, in your mock-up, before tomorrow, to wrap up?
So actually what I'll do, in terms of the, post the show is we'll get some feedback from our team. We'll review the comments tomorrow and make those tweaks accordingly. So this is all part of the design, really reflective of the design process. We actually might send this to the customer as well to see if they're okay with us representing this like this, and collect feedback that way. So, or sending it to potential other customers and just like sending it to various people and get comments just from hey, how does this case study, like what more would you want to know? Stuff like that, and then get design feedback from our designers. So tomorrow we'll review those comments and then adjust accordingly.
Yeah. And then remind me, this is going on Behance? Is it getting coded?
It's going to go on Behance.
Okay. So you don't necessarily have to worry about making it mobile friendly.
Nope, it's not. Yeah, we don't have to make it mobile friendly for the purposes of this project. Yeah.
If you were, though, is there anything immediately jumps out at you that you would do?
So we've designed it into a very mobile friendly way. This would scale, flow really. I've not made anything complicated, right? This would just kind of mostly constrain, and this would flow downwards, and this would also kind of flow downwards.
It's almost like anytime you have a side-by-side, it becomes one, two.
Yeah. This I might treat differently. I might turn this into a carousel. Maybe add arrows and add like 3 dots so that you can because scrolling through 3 of these might be like meh on mobile.
Especially their mobile. So
right.
Scroll forever.
So I scroll forever, right? So I would just turn this into a carousel on mobile, and this would kind of also auto flow. And the stats I would do maybe 2 by 2.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be 1, 1, 1 because then
square.
Yeah, then it'd be nice and square. So that's kind of how I think about it in terms of mobile.
Yeah. And talk to us, how are you going to collect feedback from everyone? And it's like pretty tight because it's like one day.
Well, I'll post it to Slack and at channel, and I'm the boss, so they'll respond to me. That's
Those are pros of having your own company, huh? Yeah. Well,
so pros and cons between having responsive designs coded in versus designing for mobile, iPad and whatnot. In this day and age, you want to have responsive design. You don't want to, it's always a lot more work if you're saying, oh, the mobile design is going to be this. Again, it's time, money, it's budget, scope, right? If someone's paying for this and they say they want a completely different version for mobile, if they're paying for it and they have the timeline, do it, right? If that's what they want. If they don't, you want to think about, like, what are some quick, easy wins? How can I design this so that it's immediately friendly on mobile and immediately friendly on iPad?
Yeah, the other thing, too, is it is good to design for specific devices, except every year Apple and Google throw us for a loop with, like, the brand new design. It's like, now the phone is long and skinny, and everyone's like, and they're like, oh, there's no header.
It's
like,
not,
surprise.
Surprise.
So
Gotcha.
Doing just responsive and going by breakpoints, and also depending on the design, because then you can tailor it. If you design something that's really text heavy, you might have very different breakpoints than something that's like an image grid or something.
Yeah.
So it makes things a little more longevity proof.
Yep.
As well.
Yeah. And in this day and age where a lot of consumption happens everywhere, I have a tablet, I browse, and I don't design on a tablet, but I consume a lot of stuff on tablet. So I might review, look at a Behance portfolio on a tablet. I'm always traveling.
Phone. Yeah.
I'm always traveling. I actually have the Behance app, but I might be looking at something in the mobile web a lot of times. So you have to be very cognizant. So if you have data around your customer and how their customers are consuming their content, then you can optimize for that.
Yeah, always the customer.
Always, yeah. Having some data, right?
Yes, it's always funny because there's guidelines, but there's never like a hard fast rule. There's often a reason why you don't do.
And that could be material you can use for the client, right? To inform the client, like if they want a certain thing and it's in desktop and you know that it's not going to translate well in mobile web, and if you have the analytics to support that, hey, 70% of your traffic is coming from mobile, like this is going to be really hard to make it work well on mobile, then you have something to stand on.
Yeah. Do you have advice with working with clients of when to push and say like, hey, like I'm going to educate you a little bit versus saying like, okay, you're the client?
Well, I mean, if I have data, then I can use my data, the data, right? Like it's not Pek person, like when people don't always want to be told what to do, especially if they're the one paying money. But if you have the data to support it, then they're more likely to listen.
Yeah, and that is very interesting because that goes into what we were talking about of like things being personal or not personal. And so that data kind of impersonalizes it. So it's not saying the client is wrong. It's like, oh, here's more information.
Right.
Yeah, and then like, maybe your judgment will change based on having more information.
Exactly. Yeah. Now that you have more information, what they decide to do with it is, Saru says you sound like Sansa Stark.
He must be talking about you.
Definitely not me.
So how much does data play into your conversation? It sounds like a lot.
As much as possible. Some clients, we definitely go into conversation with that, right? Like what goals are you trying to achieve, right? Like this is not art again, right? Like why are you doing this? Why are you spending this money? Oh, because X. Okay, what is the right? Like what you want to get to the meaning of this and get to like where do they think their values? What are they going to get out of this engagement? Because they're plunking down some money.
Yeah, and having that agreed beforehand is very nice. So you can remind in the middle of the project instead of chasing off on a lark, right? You can be like, well, we want to increase this metric. Like let's focus.
Yeah, let's focus. Like tool. This is great and shiny and cool, and that way you can also be mindful of their budget, but also be their advocate. A lot of times, if I understand their goal and they want to do Y and Y doesn't really help their goal, it's like, well, that's great. You can if you really want to do that, put that off for phase 2. And, but you really want to achieve your goal, let's focus on doing ABC for your goal.
Well, tons of great advice yesterday and today from you,
thank you.
So thank you, and thank you all for joining. So just in terms of schedule, well, first, I'm Ash Huang. This is Pek Pongpaet again. We'll be here tomorrow, again, same time, same format, but with portfolio reviews, which is very exciting. So definitely submit your portfolio. So we'll choose some. Pek will give some in-depth feedback and critique, which is very exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if there's, and then, same schedule, 12
Yeah.
to 2. So that's
Alrighty.
it. Yeah.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank
I
you
know
all.
it's very late in certain parts.
Yeah.
So we're really grateful.
Hope you'll join us tomorrow. Bye.
All right, bye.